Hey, fantasy football fans, want to gain a last-minute advantage over the teams you play this week? Well, don't forget to check out Ken Zales' Fantasy Football Notebook on PressBoxOnline.com. It's presented by Chesapeake Urology and Associates. And welcome back to Inside PressBox. I'm joined again by Craig Heist, sportscaster for WTOP in Washington, D.C. Before the break, we were talking about the Orioles and the Nationals, but now let's turn our attention to the gridiron, Craig Heist. The Redskins really are sort of showing a bit of a resurgence. Can they keep it up over the last 10 games of the season?
Well, they have probably the most dynamic player in the game right now in RG3. And last week, the 76-yard touchdown run won the game for them, certainly a big part of it. My concern with him is how well they protect him, because we've seen in the game against Tampa and in another game in St. Louis, he's just gotten leveled several times during the game. And in this league, in that style of play that he does, it's not really conducive to good health.
How much of that is his getting leveled and yet his decision-making on when to live and fight another day? I've heard a couple occasions, I haven't seen much Redskin football this year, but that if he elects to do the wise thing, go out of bounds, he's going to save himself.
Well, and 2 weeks ago was the perfect example. When he suffered the concussion, he could have gotten out of bounds, but he decided to stay in along the sidelines, and it took a vicious hit. He was down. They had to take him to the locker room, and there was some question as to whether or not he played last week against the Vikings. He did, and it turned out to be a good thing that he did. But you have to really wonder about his long-term health playing that way.
Well, maybe they should get Mike Rizzo as the general manager of the Redskins.
Just shut him down, right? Exactly.
Tell me about the rest of the Redskin team right now, because the Ravens have them on the schedule in a few weeks. What are the strengths and weaknesses on this football team aside from RG3?
Well, defensively, London Fletcher's the main guy. He's their captain. They've got some youth in the secondary, but I think more than anything, rookie running back and Alfred Morris, he had probably his worst game of the year in terms of just yardage in the last game against the Vikings, but he's run hard right out of training camp. And, of course, Santana Moss on the outside. They've got some parts for RG3 to work with. I didn't think maybe they'd be as talented as they are. But still, I think it's still an uphill struggle for them to get to the playoffs this year.
What is the nature of the relationship right now with Mike Shanahan? And I know you're not close with Dan Snyder at all, but what is the relationship like there? Is this a long-term marriage?
I don't know whether it's a long-term marriage. I certainly think it's about a 2 or 3 year marriage, and I think there is pressure on Shanahan to try to get something substantial accomplished this year now that he's got RG3. Now, and again, Mike Shanahan's all about system. It's about running the football, and then you take it from there. And whatever RG3 can do to supplement that, this guy can beat you with his arms, his legs. He's got a 100-plus quarterback rating right now. He's up near the top of the league. Just keeping him healthy is what's going to be the biggest key for this club.
Let's go a little bit north, back to Baltimore. Tell me about your assessment of the Ravens' defense right now.
Well, after watching them give up 214 on the ground to Kansas City, then come back against the Cowboys and give up 227, that's the first time in team history that's ever happened. And, of course, the biggest chunk of yardage last week against the Cowboys, never have they given up that many. And oh, by the way, Houston's up next. so there's some guy named Foster down there.
Yeah.
But, obviously they've got some holes on defense. But, they always seem to make a play when they need to on defense. That's the one thing about this team.
And they get T. Sizzle back kind of almost a step or two behind the Lewis injury. It's almost like replacing Lewis with Sizzle and maybe even having a better.
Right, and Terrell practiced for the first time Wednesday this past week.
Yep.
So we'll see what happens. How limited he was, I don't know. But I'm sure they're going to take it slow with him.
Real quick before we let you go, Ravens make the playoffs?
I think so, yeah. It'd be kind of, especially with the 5-1 start. Even with their schedule being what it is in the next 4 to 5 weeks, I think they've got a good shot at it.
Redskins sneak in, or still?
I'm still not going to put them in the playoffs.
All right. Craig Heist, one of my best friends in the business. I mean that. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thanks.
It's the only night I could ever get him to come in. And we'll be right back to wrap things up, so don't go away. Donate your car and get the highest possible tax deduction with Vehicles for Change. Go to vehiclesforchange.org for complete details. Vehicles for Change, changing lives with donated cars.